Hello friends, the battle for Poland is on. We have these two guitars, both manufactured in Poland, one from a company that's been around since 1982, and another from a company that's been around, just over 5 years or so. So this Mayones Duvell, I think Mayones is the right way to say it, I don't speak Polish, and this Skervesen Raptor. Let's take a look at the details of them and let them battle it out. Okay, so as with all my gear battles, and specifically the battles between guitars, I have a specific set of criteria that I use to do the judging, and I have a little video. I'll include a link below in case you really want to know more granularly how I arrive at my scores and what's important to me when I'm looking at these. That said, the first thing I want to do is show you these guitars in some kind of context that's meaningful, in a bit of a song, like in a mix, so you see what they sound like. So I made like a little 1.5-minute song, and every couple of measures you'll see I'm going to switch from guitar to guitar and change pickup settings. I'll start in the bridge pickup with each and work my way up to the neck. And with this guitar, we've got a 3-way switch with a push-pull, so it's 6 sounds. And actually with the Skervesen, it's a 3-way switch within 3 different settings, which we'll talk about a little more later. But I'm just going to compare, apples to apples as much as I can here. So I'll be using the 6 main sounds on this and the 6 main sounds on that, minus the extra one that Skervesen has as a special part of their build. Okay, now you've heard them in context. A little note there, I didn't add any EQ or anything in that. It's just a split stereo, recording the guitar left and right. And obviously it's a high gain sound. These are both tuned to drop C, and they're kind of more commonly used for metal type sounds, but we're going to examine them with something a little less high gain so you can hear more of the nuance between the pickup sounds. But I think even in that track, you can see that there's quite a range of sounds available, even with a very high gain type of sound. Now let's first look at the specifics of the construction of this guitar. This Mayones Duvell is a Buckeye burl top with a mahogany body and an ebony fretboard. There is a 5-ply wenge neck with purple heart as well. There is stainless steel frets, a hip shot bridge, and hip shot grip lock tuners. The pickups are Seymour Duncan Nazgul and Sentient pickups. The guitar weighs 8 pounds, and the sustain test averaged at 5.7 seconds at the bridge and 6.2 seconds with the neck pickup. All right, that's all the info for the Mayones guitar, and now let's look at the specifics for the Skervesen. The Skervesen Raptor is an ash body with a wenge neck and an ebony fretboard. There are hip shot tuners, a Hans bridge, Hannes, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, bare knuckle nail bomb pickups. This has what they call the World Domination mod, which we'll talk about later in the sound sample, which is a 3-way switch now with a humbucker, a split, and then this sound which is kind of more spanky, like a piezo kind of acoustic sound mixed with a very single coil type sound. And there is also a string compensation system here to account for string gauge and evenly spacing the strings. The guitar weighs 6.5 pounds, and in my sustain test, the bridge pickup averaged out at about 6.3 seconds, and the neck at about 6.7 seconds. Okay, so you've seen the details, and you've heard them in context. It's time to get on with the actual battle. So the first thing we look at in the battle is construction. Now again, I have details below of how I arrive at my scores and what goes into how I judge the guitars. And when we're talking about this guitar, and both guitars, these are very high-end, I guess you could call them elite guitars, and so you have to have high expectations, and I do, and that's how I'm scoring them through that lens. And when we talk about fantastic quality woods here, I know this isn't everybody's taste, these complex kind of woods, but it is, the pressing of the top to the body is immaculate. The contour on the back of the body is very comfortable and beautifully done. The 5-piece neck is extremely stable. You've got a high-quality bridge and tuners, and no problems with the switching or noise on the volume switch or anything like that. And so when we're getting really picky with it, we have to talk about things like the fret dressing. Do I have the fret sticking into my hand as I go up and down the fretboard? And the answer is no. It's very clean and well done here. We talk about the sustain of the guitar, which I mentioned in the details, which speaks to the quality of the bridge and the connection at the nut. Whether the guitar is able to continue sustaining. And the score here, when compared to other guitars in this range, was a little bit lower than I'd like to see, but not a lot so. And then the last thing we talk about is the tuning. Is it stable? Is it good through the seasons? Is it like rock solid, or do I have to chase the tuning around a little bit? Is it a bit of a bear to keep in tune? And this guitar is pretty stable, but not incredibly so. It's not the most stable guitar I have in my collection at this kind of range. And so my total score for construction on this guitar is an 8. Now talking about the construction of the Skervesen Raptor here, again, we have very high quality parts, rare kind of beautiful wood top here, beautifully pressed onto the body. One of the things I had seen, one of the tours of their factory, was about how they keep the woods pressed for 6 months, I think it was, before they even take it off of the press. And that's part of the reason why ordering a custom can take quite a while to get. We have really good high quality neck and nut and tuners. When I talk about the fret dressing on this guitar, I've had no problems with it. It doesn't dig in at all. It's been very stable and it's very cleanly done. In the sustain test, this guitar did pretty well, a little bit better than the Mayones, although not in the top of what I would consider to be my guitars, but still pretty solid. As far as the tuning through the seasons and whatnot, it's been rock solid and stable. I barely ever have to touch the tuners on this thing. It stays really in tune. I've also never had any problems with the volume knob or any of the switches. The construction, I think, is among the most solid of anything I have. And my final score for that on this guitar is a 9. The next thing we look at is playability, and of course that's a personal type of taste thing, and you should maybe understand that I'm like a 90s shredder guy, and I like guitars that don't offer a lot of resistance and are very buttery to play. Some other people might want guitars with higher action that are a little more difficult to play. So when I'm talking about my scores for playability, it certainly is within that context. Now, this guitar and the other guitar I use more for a modern metal type of thing. I've got heavier gauge strings than I usually use. I'm a guy that plays 9s mostly. This guitar I've got 10s on, and the Skervesen I have 11s on, and they're tuned to drop C. So when playing this guitar, I find it doesn't offer a ton of resistance. It's very easy to play. I can play my leads on it. I'm very comfortable on it. It does have enough of kind of action and resistance so that it doesn't feel flubby when I'm playing heavier parts. And all in all, I'm quite pleased with the playability of this guitar, and my final score for this one on playability is an 8. All right, when we talk about the playability of the Skervesen, again, has heavier gauge strings on it and is down-tuned a little bit. I find it to be pretty much the same level of quality as the Mayones as far as playing it. It's easy to play. It doesn't feel like it's resisting me too much. I can play that heavier metal stuff and dig in without it feeling flubby, and I'm pleased with the feel overall. And my score for playability on this guitar is an 8. And now the last thing we talk about is the sound. Now, of course, I did the intro song there where you could hear the sound, at least in the context of like a high gain metal type of thing. And I think it's a little bit better to also hear the sounds in a more of a low gain type of setting so that you can really hear the difference between the different pickup settings. So I'm just going to plug in here again quick and just do a little bit of dilly-dallying on the guitar and switch between the pickups for you so you can hear the sounds in a more clear type of environment. Right, as you can hear there is a wide range of sounds on this guitar. You can go from classic rock to jazz, I think even, and the modern metal that I was playing on it in the beginning and maybe these guitars are more known for. The Seymour Duncan pickups are of a great quality and you don't have problems with noise and whatnot, and I think the sounds are very rich and full. Now, again, I'm being super picky because we're talking about very elite guitars, and I have some guitars with a sound palette that's so incredibly wide that that's kind of my gauge for what would make a 10. That said, there is a great wide range of sounds here, and I'm very happy with it, and my final score for sound on this guitar is an 8. And lastly, we talk about the sound on this, and this guitar's got a bit of an advantage because it has that extra sound built in, the World Domination mod as they call it, which you can hear is a pretty spanky type of sound. And I think I should also plug this one in and do a little bit of a low gain sound sample for you. So let's do that, and I'll come back and give it the final score. Okay, so you can hear the sounds between like the double and the split aren't as wide apart as on the Mayones, but they are distinct. And then when you go to that extra world domination, whatever you want to call it, the third setting, the third voicing on this guitar, that really jumps out as a different sound. And there's a good full wide range of sounds on here, maybe even more so than the other guitar. And also with these nail bomb pickups, with the bare knuckle pickups, if you're doing that modern metal stuff, they've got a certain quality to them that you don't hear in other types of pickups. They really, I don't even have an adjective for it. You just hear it and you know what it is. And I like that it's got that modern sound that's a little different than everything else. And also I can go in and grab more of a classic sound with it. I think there is a good wide range of sounds and they are super high quality sounds. And so for my sound score, this guitar gets a 9. Okay, so there you have it, the battle for Poland. When you tally up all the scores, the Mayones guitar gets a total of 24, and this Skervesen guitar gets a total of 26. So this is your winner for the Battle of Poland. They're both great guitars. I can't imagine anyone would be unhappy with either one of them. It's got a lot to do with just personal taste, I'm sure. And so if there's anything else you wanted to see or hear, or you got any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'm always happy to hear from you guys and chat with people. And until next time, guys, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.